All right. Welcome back. If you're a veteran and you're struggling or feel like you are leading a path towards the darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you'll be a burden to someone, or you don't feel like you should put that weight on your inner circle, call the hotline at 988 and take option 1. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. It's _MisFitNation. This will keep you up to date with our latest news, episodes, and of course, our great guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is alternative investment blogger, educator, speaker, and author of Get Off Your Ass and Manage Your Money: Why You Need Alternative Investments. Through his blog at theprolificinvestor.net and book, he will show you investors why alternatives are vastly superior to the stock market and to the 401k highway to mediocrity. So without further ado, let's welcome Chris Odegard to the MisFit Nation. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Rich, how are you? Glad to be here. Thanks a lot, man.
It's great to have you. Great to, like we talked in the pre-show, it's great to finally get this thing going. I know we had a speed bump, but that life happens, and we're both here today, and we're both doing well. So, Chris, if you don't mind, I know I just gave a quick blurb. That's your highlight reel, what I just gave right there. Let's talk a little bit about it, as far back as you want to go to where we are now. Let's learn a little bit more about Chris.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Went to school in Daytona Beach, Florida, a place called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and then I lived out in the West Coast for Seattle for a long time, and I'm currently in near Charleston, South Carolina. But I grew up. If anybody's ever read the Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about ease. I grew up with a family of ease. That's employees. There was no business, there was no entrepreneurship, anything like that. I kind of learned what my parents and everybody around me knew, and what they did was to go to school and get a job with benefits and work there, and then until you retired, and then that was it. And put your money. Put all your hard-earned money into the company 401k for, and you're basically just investing in the stock market. And that's what I did for quite a lot of years. I was what I like to call a conventional investor, and you mentioned that I call it the 401k highway to mediocrity, because if you're investing that way in publicly traded things through a 401k, you really do get mediocre results. But that's what everybody knows. That's what everybody knows, and that's what they do, and that all changed for me when I had a huge illiquidity event in my mid-40s where I lost 55% of my assets and thousands of dollars a month in cash flow. My situation happened to be caused by a divorce, but it could be lots of different things. And just by coincidence, a friend of mine recommended a book to me, and it was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's where I learned about all the rest of the market, which is everything that's not publicly traded, not on the stock market. And those are called alternative investments. So I switched pretty quickly from conventional to alternatives. And in 9 years, I made up that 55% loss, multiplied it many times over, quit my corporate job, and I'll never work again in a traditional, in a job anymore. So anyway, that would have not happened if I'd stayed on that 401k highway to mediocrity. So I'm all about sharing that information and try to get people, hopefully you get some young people who never get on that highway, or if you're already on it, get off it at the nearest exit and start doing something different and smarter with your money, so that someday, you can make work a choice instead of a necessity. So that's kind of my story.
Right, and it's a good story right there. And you had a pretty good speed bump in your late in life there in the 40s there. So that's a hard time to get that speed bump, because by that time you thought you had that little nest egg, I'm sure, doing the comfortable investing that most of us understand and learned from our parents and their parents to do everything the comfortable way. Don't go outside those lines and do the 401k, have that 9-to-5 job, and invest in this, and have insurance so he has that backup on you. And I think that's the conventional wisdom, I think, is the word for it there. that
Yep.
people stay with that conventional wisdom. And like you said, it does lead to that highway to mediocrity. How do you coach people to maybe pump the brakes and maybe turn left?
Yeah, well, it's all about the stuff I put on my website. I write articles, I do videos, and like you mentioned, I wrote the book, and I guess I published last year, and I thought, wow, I made so many wrong turns on this journey. One step forward, three steps back. If I could, if I could put that all in a book, maybe I could, give people a more efficient path with a lot less mistakes. So that's what I lay out in the book, and there's an action guide you can download from there. But yeah, there's just a lot of it's like the first, I think it was Galileo who first said the world was round. Well, everybody knew the world was flat, so he was crazy, right? So when some guy like me says the 401k sucks, nobody believes you, right? Because you're just like this lone voice out there. That's starting to change though. So I just try to put out as much information as I can, about why alternatives are better.
And do you think a combination of doing both would help you, would even help, or just sticking with one or the other?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm like 95% in alternatives and very little in the stock market, but that's just me. And most people probably aren't going to do that. But for example, the average annual return of the S&P 500 since its inception is somewhere just like 9. It's right around 10. Let's just call it 10%. And that's before taxes and inflation. And in the environment we are now, where real inflation is actually above 10%, your money invested that way isn't even maintaining its buying power. You're losing money if you're only making 10% when inflation is real inflation is higher than that. And for me in the alternative space, I mean, I routinely get average returns of 25% and higher, which means that with those kind of numbers, about every 4 years, you're doubling your money. So think how different people's futures would be if, they were doubling their money, every 4 years instead of, every 17 or 20 years or whatever.
Right, definitely. They'd be a lot happier and a lot happier headspace and timing at that point too.
Yeah.
You've talked about alternative investments, and you brought up the Standard and Poor's, which is the conventional side. What are alternative investments? How do people get into them?
Yeah, so everything that's not publicly traded, everything outside the stock market. So that would be, every type of real estate, from single family rentals, apartments, self-storage, shopping centers, something called notes, like promissory notes. So, people that own a house usually don't buy it with cash. They get a bank loan. Well, individuals could actually, that loan is an asset to the bank and it's a liability to you as the borrower. Well, those loans get sold off, and I have invested in notes and owning mortgages like that. So people are paying me every month for 30 years and instead of the bank. So that's something you can do. Precious metals, cryptocurrency, business equipment. I own ATM machines across the country, and they just produce cash. So that even actually over a properly structured, overfunded cash value life insurance is a really positive investment.
How does one get into that? Do they just have to research and do it, or?
Yeah. So I would, there's a couple ways. It requires a lot more education than, just you get a job and they automatically opt you into the 401k and they take a certain percentage and it goes into these set funds. So that just doesn't exist in this world. So you need to read books like mine and Rich Dad Poor Dad. You need to start getting on some different podcasts like yours and other ones, and you need to join some type of a group of like-minded people. And my favorite group, and I don't get any any compensation or anything for saying this, is a group called Left Field Investors. And Left Field Investors is all about generating passive income through alternatives. And so you really have to just kind of immerse yourself somehow in this other world, and the podcasts and Left Field Investors and my site is kind of how you get started.
Wow. I think if you get in Left Field Investors and read your book and the Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think I had that book right here on my shelf over here, or at least one of his books, because I think he had a series of different books he put out all within a couple of years of each other. And I think as I was getting out of the military, those were the things that they were suggesting to read as I got out. I said I could have used this while I was in, so it would have helped a lot more as I get out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of good information in there. So how is your book doing right now? And you said it's been out for a year, and I'm sure.
Yeah, I like to call it, unless you're J.K. Rowling's, I don't think most authors get rich writing their books. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's kind of a slow and steady selling process. So it's doing okay.
Yeah, I like you said, J.K. Rowling or Stephen King. This doesn't, or Mr. Patterson. There, you can't just come out there and all of a sudden you have a bestseller on New York Times top 10 bestseller list and generating thousands of dollars a week off one book. For us little guys, it's a hit. You reach one, teach one. That's what my book's for. That's what your book is for. So you reach one, teach one, and then word of mouth helps it go along the way. So I know that helps you out too.
The book's a good place to start because it's just around 200 pages. I mean, you could read this book in 2 or 3 hours. It's got color pictures and graphs, and I basically walk people through something I call the hierarchy of investors, which shows, it compares conventional and alternative investments across 13 different categories, and alternatives are better in 11 of the 13. Return on investment, favorable tax treatment, the ability to use leverage. They're just better in almost every way. So it's really just that people don't really know about it, and people tend to be scared about things that they don't know and don't understand. So but it is changing. People are watching the economic cycles that we go through and how the government is screwing with the market and the economy, and usually not in a good way, and just watching these stock portfolios just go through these wild swings, and sometimes, and a lot of times, completely disconnected from what's going on in the real economy. So, stocks were going up all during COVID. Like, why?
And then crash and burn.
Yeah, right.
It's up to you at that point. Do you want to ride the course, or you want to jump out at a loss? So it's how you want to do it at that point. And most people, I know a lot of people have stayed the course, but I also know some people that got angry when it did the dip and they jumped out at a loss. And I said that's not really smart, but have at it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and when I was saying that the S&P 500 gets about 10% annually, studies have been done about what kind of returns the average stock market investor gets, and the average stock investor gets about half of the S&P 500 index average. They get about 5%, and it's because we're people. People buy and sell at the wrong time, and they get in and they get out, and they're inconsistent, and so most people are getting a very low return. And I know, and every time I tell somebody this, they'll say, "Well, I'm getting X return over here." Okay, well, by the nature of the term average, there's a whole bunch of you that are not getting these great returns in the stock market, right? So anyway,
that's why there's an average Joe's gymnasium, and so there's always the average, and then there's the above average guys and gals who are educated and know the ebbs and flows before the guy that's looking on his computer doing whatever trade center app they're working on there to try to jump in and make money.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got into the alternative market for like the promissory notes, do you have to have like a LLC behind you to do that, or you can do it just as individual and say, I want to just invest my money and buy this mortgage?
Generally, you can do it either way. You can do it as an individual, or you can do it, with an LLC. So if you're, the government and the IRS in particular rewards businesses with great tax treatment. If you're if you're an employee, you pay taxes on your gross income. Think about it. Your employer pays you. The government takes its taxes first, and then you get to live on what's left over. Right. The way businesses get taxed on their net income, you take your gross revenue, you subtract all your expenses, and then you pay taxes on the net. So I do all my investing through a business structure, so I get that same tax treatment. If you're just investing in things through your personal name, you get a small number of deductions, but not like a business, so anytime I travel or pick up a book or an education program, if it's related to researching my investments, that's a tax deductible thing. you know so going out to a convention in Las Vegas in July that's related to investing, guess what?
Business.
That's a business expense. It just so happens my daughter lives out there, and I mean, part of the trip is personal. It's personal. Part of it's business. You get to deduct, whichever part of it's business related. So, but you wouldn't, if you're investing in the stock market in your own name, and you flew to the corporate headquarters of some company to take a tour of the plant or whatever, you're not going to get to write that off on your tax return as an individual.
Exactly.
So.
And even like you do in this podcast right here, you can probably write this off as a business expense because you're marketing yourself at this point.
Yeah, any expenses, this type of stuff. I can't really, you don't, I can't charge for my time, in a situation like this. Yeah, but any of the equipment or, this kind of stuff and the lighting, that's all. Those are all business expenses.
Yes, I just had when you said the promissory note thing, I was like, that's probably a good investment. I can do that. But if I'd had the backing of the LLC behind me, it'd be a lot easier. And you answered my question, so that was actually a me question. That was good.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, and it depends on, this is kind of like attorney talk. There's like safe assets and dangerous assets. So, a promissory note isn't really, it's kind of a safe asset. There's not really much risk there. But if you own a small apartment building and you have, you're renting it to the public, I would say you wouldn't want to do that in your personal name. Somebody falls down the steps and gets injured or dies, or there's a fire, and if your name is on that deed, they're gonna sue you. And that, that's, so the tax treatment and the asset protection are the two reasons for setting up a business structure, so that, you don't lose everything in a situation like that.
So you said that the promissory note is not really a risky investment. What would you consider a risky investment besides the landlord stuff?
Well, so any type of real estate where you have exposure to tenants, like let's say if you have, maybe you owned a fleet of backhoes that you leased out, some guy could dig up a power line and shut down a neighborhood, or you electrocute yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that'd be a high risk right there. Yeah. So there's always a good and bad, and you just gotta, once you start playing, I'm sure it took you a couple swings to find your groove and find the ones that work well for you.
Right.
And within that group, the left field investors, I'm sure you've met other guys and gals that have started out and they showed that what they've done wrong and how they've overcome that. Any of those tips and tricks you can show?
Yeah. Well, and I'll just sidestep that. That's the benefit of groups like Left Field and other ones is, in this particular case, they have forums. So if you want to say, hey, what do you know about this apartment syndicator or the guys that put together these ATM deals? If there's not a subject on that, that business already, you can go and start one, and basically it's the best way to figure out who you're going to be in business with and invest with is just from referrals from other people that have experience. So that's the benefit of those types of groups. But then there was a question in there that I kind of you were asking.
Oh, I forget now. I was listening to what you were saying. I forgot what my question actually was. All right, we'll get back to that.
Well, and getting back to the liability thing. So let's just say you owned an apartment building, a small apartment building, and nothing happened in the apartment building, right? But it's it's owned by you in your name, and you have a car accident over here, completely unrelated. Well, when they go to sue you, they're going to look at everything you own. They're going to go, oh, look at this. Rich owns this apartment building. So we're not only going to get his personal residence, we're going to his car and his truck. We're going to go after that apartment building. But if that apartment building is in its own entity, then, it protects you from inside liability from within that asset, as well as some other outside liabilities. So somebody can't come and take that.
Right. I remember the question now, like tips and tricks that they've given you on the Left Field Investors, like what to stay away from when you're starting out, or maybe what to jump right on when you're starting out.
Well, I guess there isn't anything that that generic in terms of rules or advice, because there isn't like a target retirement fund, of alternative investments. And it really depends on every individual, what your risk tolerance is. And I actually did notes for a while, and I decided after a while I'm never doing notes again. I had some bad experiences. They were very difficult and very time consuming for me in terms of the return I was getting and the amount of time it was taking me. So some of these things, they're not like a stock or mutual fund where you put your money in, and sometimes there's a work, like if you have a property and you're managing it. So I was buying what's called non-performing notes. So this is where somebody had defaulted on their mortgage, and then my job was to go. I would buy these notes at a discount, and then I would contact the homeowner and say, "Hey, look, how can we get you paying again on some schedule so that you can stay in your house and I don't have to take it?" and that was a lot of work.
Sure you had a lot of fun conversations with that one too.
Yep.
Since you were a totally unknown entity to them at that point, and because they're used to whoever they dealt with before, ABC Mortgage Company, and then now they're talking to Chris on the phone. It's probably a weird cold call to do right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and even to get them to answer, the call sometimes. Yeah,
especially nowadays, you don't know what's a scam, so I'm not answering that guy. This is probably someone trying to get me to give money to a Nigerian prince or something. There's no way I'm answering that call.
Yeah.
So if you could have talked to yourself, say 25-year-old you, what would you have told yourself then with the information you have now?
Oh my gosh, I remember when I started my first corporate job, and the company, they had this branded 401k, and I didn't know what that thing was. I'd never heard of a 401k, and I asked somebody who I trusted, what do you think about that? And his answer was, put as much money in that 401k as they will let you. And that's what I did for decades. And knowing what I know now, I wouldn't put a dime in the typical pre-tax 401k. I think there's some room for a Roth in my thinking. But the big selling point on the 401ks is the match from the company and the tax benefits. So I have an article on this on my website where I've compared what's a better investment. Let's say a $20,000 investment in mutual funds in your 401k, or a $20,000 investment in a single family rental in the form of a down payment. So you, in the 401k, you're going to put $20,000 in, you're going to get $20,000 worth of mutual funds. If you take the $20,000 and put it as a down payment, you're going to get $100,000 property. And the single family rental also has something similar to company match, and it also has tax benefits, and they're better. So the match is that every month for the next 36 years, somebody else is paying off your mortgage. That's free money to you. And in the 401k, you get it one time when you make it. You get this for the next, however many years. And then the other thing is the tax benefits. Real estate comes with something called depreciation. So you get a tax benefit for the next 26 and a half years. And when you compare the value of the company match and the taxes in the 401k versus the benefit of the other people's money in the form of rent and depreciation, in the single family rental, those benefits are almost 3 times greater than the 401k. So it doesn't even stand up on its two big selling points.
Wow. You kind of knock it out the park right there. So yeah, I'm sure as people learn this, it's probably way better to learn it early, but even if you learn it late, you can still jump in and salvage some as you get closer towards your retirement age.
Yeah, well, I didn't start until my mid 40s, and started from a deficit, and I was able to come back, and so yeah, that would, and think of, instead of this. I mean, what if? And I've heard people, talk about this. It's God. If you only buy a house for yourself to live in, you're just kind of greedy. Every year, why don't you just buy a house and let somebody else live in it? And it's in the form of a rental property, and you're going to be way wealthier at the end of your working life by buying a house for somebody else to live in every couple of years, and just being so selfish as buying one just for yourself, right?
Just staying there. Exactly. Yes. So, Chris, we talked about a lot of things about alternative investments and how you started and the way you have invested so far. If you can give 3 tips to the audience, one, how to get started, 2, best avenues of approach, and then 3, how to maintain it.
So the first thing is you have to change your mindset, and that's going to take some, I'll, go onto my website, grab my book, and let that be your starting place.
There you go.
And take a look at the website. I've got resources, the podcasts I listen to, the books that I have read. So that's the first thing, is to start changing what goes into your mind in that way. And then the next thing is you're going to have to join. Somehow you're going to have to be involved with other groups of people. And in every major city in the United States, there's a real estate investment association or real estate investing club. And so if you just go on to Google and type in REIA, Real Estate Investing Association, or Real Estate Investing Clubs, there is a national website, and I don't remember what it is, but you'll be able to find some clubs in your city. Or you look at something like Left Field Investors, which you can join virtually from anywhere in the country. And the way they have monthly meetings via Zoom. And so that's how you kind of keep on top of things. You'll see deals that are being offered by people, and you'll be able to ask questions about all the different aspects of, taxes and entity structure and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that hit on your 3 specific things there.
I think you hit the ball with the bat right there. That was pretty good. You talked about your website, but you didn't say what your website was. If you want to tell people how to get in contact with you and your website, Of course, I have it going across the screen, but you can at least sort it out.
Yeah, it's everything about me is at theprolificinvestor.net. So the book, there's a link to the book there. I have a conventional wisdom quiz that people can take, all the articles, the resources, the videos, and all the social media outlets. If you want to follow me on any of them, they're all right there at theprolificinvestor.net. So that's the one-stop shop for everything.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks for taking some of your time tonight and to hang out with Misfit Nation and share a lot of great information. Misfit Nation, don't forget to check out Chris's website, theprolificinvestor.net. And, of course, go to, Amazon to get your book, get off your ass and manage your money.
Yeah. Then you can link to it. It's right on the homepage. You can link to it there as well. So it'll take you right there.
That makes it even easier. One-stop shop right off the website. Get there, get his book, and start your alternative journey to financial freedom. Thanks again, Chris, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. It's themisfitnation.com to catch up on all of our episodes and also to get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are